Quick shout out to my Patreons who keep this channel going. You can join my Patreon down in the description below. What's guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're reacting to the 10th episode of Log Horizon Season 2. This one's titled Guildmaster. And yeah, I apologise in advance if you hear any sort of like drilling or banging or something. We've got a lot of fire safety stuff happening in our block of flats, and I think they're here again right now. So just be mindful of that if you happen to hear any of that. But yeah, last two episodes were pretty good, to say the least. We completed the Akiba raid, or the Akiba raid, however you want to call it. And as such, we have dealt with Nelref and his problem. Unfortunately, it does mean that the city's magic circle is, well, yeah, it's off. Which means the protection of the city is now something of a concern. I'm sure we'll discuss that once Shiroi comes back from his expedition. But we kind of followed their storyline for the most part, and now we're coming back to Shiroi's side, and we saw in the last episode them going up against this attack and ultimately wiping, and what ended up being Shiroi's first death. And so we kind of got a bit of backstory on that, because we've seen Shiroi and Akatsuki up on the moon together when they both died, and we kind of knew that he died in a wipe on the raid, but we got a bit more context as to what happened and things like that. But it was a full-on wipe, so that was pretty rough. And also the fact that 3 of these bosses are can be in one location. The question is if they go back in, whether all 3 of them are there again, or if it's just going to reset and you have a certain amount of time to deal with the first one, and then the other 2 join in. Because it seemed like we were doing relatively okay against this first boss. It was time-consuming, but we were overall making progress. He was healing whenever he summoned his ads and stuff, though, when he switched forms, but other than that, we were dealing more damage than he was healing. So eventually we could have maybe got him. But, yeah, the fact that the other bosses spawn in, fighting 3 bosses at once is insane. I don't know if it was a timer-based thing, if it was a trigger-based thing on HP remaining, and that's like the next phase of the battle, or what. But we've got to start thinking about how the hell we're going to deal with that as well, because that's quite a lot to consider, honestly. But we did also get like a small little throwaway bit of, well, not really a throwaway, but something I didn't really think of too much last time. Shiroi calls the moon the test server, essentially, of Elder Tales, making the moon and where they were dying and reviving on as another server. And that just kind of put in the thought of me, just thinking back on it, well, that means to a certain extent, you can travel between servers. To a certain extent. How much you could reliably do that, we don't know. But it does give possibilities in the future if we were to maybe server hop and see how that ends up going, because when you have a game with multiple servers and people on their own servers, it makes you wonder, like, is it only our server that had this apocalypse? Did other servers have this apocalypse? Can we communicate with those other servers? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? So maybe we'll start exploring a little bit of that. I'm sure that information of there being a way to transport between servers, even if it's unintentionally through death, I'm sure that's going to become relevant later on. Because they wouldn't really include a detail like that. You didn't really need to even explain that. You just say, oh, it's just a respawn area on the server. Like, you could have just said that. But no, the fact you went out of your way to say it's a different server, and a test server, perhaps. Now it's like, it feels a bit more, what's the word? Purposeful that you've distinguished it as such. But anyway, I guess we're going to go back to before we wipe, or just after we wiped, I should say, and start thinking out how the hell we're going to deal with this raid. So, going to load the episode up here. As per usual, these are time-based format reactions here on YouTube. If you want to see the full picture in picture, you can go to my Patreon down in the description below. £4 a month gets you access to all picture in picture reactions I do on the channel, which is everything from the current seasonal lineup, as well as Patreon quest shows such as Log Horizon here. We also do movie reactions, and we've got a busy couple of weekends coming up, because tomorrow, if you're watching this when this comes out, we have the Princess Principal Crown Handler movie, as well as the Tomazaki OVA, Part 2. And then the week after that, on the 19th, we will have I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, the movie, which was voted on by my patrons as part of the monthly movie polls that I do. I'm working on getting YouTube a bit more involved with those as well. And part of that will revolve around the community tab when that finally unlocks. I'm waiting for that to unlock. It usually takes, it can take up to a week apparently. Once you hit 1k subs and get into the part program and all that, so I'm just waiting on that to tick over, and then I'll be using that to interact with you guys a lot more frequently, as well as running like little polls and fun little questionnaire things and stuff like that. I think community tab is going to be very, very useful in spreading my audience, because I get a lot of community tab stuff that I see on YouTube that from communities I really have no real overlap in. I may have watched one video from them ever, if any, and so it kind of just gets a new audience in, and I think that would work out quite well in the long term. So that's my plan with that when it comes live. But here on YouTube we do time-based, so bottom left of the screen you'll see a time for the episode. I count down 3 to 1 play, then on play you start the episode, I start the episode, and we should be in sync. We're watching this one on Crunchyroll as per usual, since that's where I can legally view this here in the UK. No logos or anything, we're just straight into the episode, so yeah. You can use screen flash on my face, the mic, or this part of my headset to tell when the scenes are transitioning. That should help you sync it up a bit as well. This one's a bit weird to sync up at times, but should work out just fine. So, with all that said, let's get into this week's episode, shall we? In 3, 2, 1, play. Yep, the wipe. Certainly seems like it, doesn't it? And OP time. Okay. Very short recap. Don't know if you could really even call it a recap, honestly. Still love this OP. We haven't even mentioned Krusty at this point, have we? But we don't know what's happened to him since the flavor text of that one weapon acted up. Because, I mean, if he's dead, he'd respawn. He's probably sealed or something. Depends on what the flavor text of the weapon is. That's going to be a problem after this raid, probably. Guildmaster. Everyone's getting dejected. Yeah, people are in a... they're all very dejected. Oof. Hey, PC and gaming and stuff is very useful for your future. Mm. Yeah, since when a PC game is chosen the smartest way, though? Let's be real. Mm. I mean, it was also their first attempt, to be fair, but. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm. Hmm. A very relatable thing for a lot of people, myself included to an extent. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got the stopwatch in hand. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that. Mm-hmm. Splitting the loot, man, is probably the hardest thing. Mm-hmm. Good backstory and build-up episode for William, I must say. Very different type of character from what we saw in like season one at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. 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 Demicus. Mm-hmm. You sure about that? Yes. Going back to that. Mm-hmm. And they took it on and managed it. Mm-hmm. This entire episode is going to be this monologue, and I'm actually here for it. Yeah. Rally the troops. It's going to take more than one more go, I think, but. What about Demicast? Is he still. Yeah. Yep, gotta win. Hmm. Oh. Oh. Okay. You're gonna be honest with them. Okay. Taking on what he learned on the moon. Okay. One in a few thousand. Oh, that's actually way better than I expected. 15% is not terrible. Okay. Alright. Okay. January 7th, okay. Hmm. Okay. Next attempt. And into ED. Well, music started, but. What's interesting about that episode, I think more than any other episode so far, that episode was a monologue. Like, pretty much for its entirety, that was a monologue. But it was engaging enough that it didn't feel like it dragged on too long, or it didn't feel like it was needless. It's actually quite impressive. Because it's very hard to carry episodes or shows based on a single voice acting performance. I think Sama Spider So What kind of ran into that problem. As did, what was the name of that one show? I think it was Wave Listen to Me, or something along those lines. Like the radio drama one. That was very much based around just one VA's performance, and performance was fine, it just felt like it dragged on and on and on. But Williams' monologue here just was perfect for me. It might have been a bit of runtime padding as well, possibly, but it was an interesting type of padding. All right, so next time. Next episode is called Retry. And we will be taking our 15% chance at facing these bosses. I assume we did some recon. Like, they said it's been a week since then, so I'm assuming they've done recon. I assume they've done other prep work, getting an idea on what strategy is. I don't know what's going to be different about this one. I assume we'd probably have like tanks and healers just to distract the two of the bosses, and then focus all DPS on one boss at a time, so that we can wipe one out immediately. Then we're just faced with two, focus on another one of them, wipe that out immediately, and then we only have one boss left. That seems to be the most obvious, because trying to take out three at once, you're splitting all your DPS by a third instantly, and that's just going to make it near impossible to keep going. So I suppose you pick the weakest one based on either just raw HP and like how quickly it is to take him out, or which one's the more dangerous one. If you take out the most dangerous one first, then you don't have to worry about him being a problem down the road, I suppose, but you'll also be fighting the most dangerous one whilst you're dealing with three, so, not sure which way you go there. Interesting to see which way they go, and, well, see how they take the news of what is actually going on with Shiroe. Is he going to tell them before the raid, or is he telling them after the raid is successful? I wonder. I would assume he'd tell them before he actually went to the raid, but it looks like we're just going straight into it, so maybe we're going to wait until after we've completed and we've got to where we're actually meant to be going. Maybe we're like, this is the reason why. Like, maybe he was just going to say, I'll beat the raid, and then he'd go off on his own to do some things. But this way he's going to say, okay, guys, come here, this is what we're actually after. Or something like that, I suppose. But yeah, like I said, interesting episode, because it was very much like a monologue episode, which was kind of not what I expected. But ultimately, it ends up really, really working. I like the exploration of William's character in that regard, and it's something that I think a lot of people will resonate with. Because if you're watching a show like this, you probably have an interest in gaming, at the very least. Whether it be like to the extent of proper full-in MMO style games like this, depends. I'm not a big MMO gamer for the most part. I've never really done like guild stuff. I never got into like Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14 or anything like that. I've never got into those types of games. The closest I've ever come was World of Warships, which I spent many years doing. We did have a guild, so to speak, with that, but it was never... I never went into the competitive scene or anything. I casted competitively, which was a wild experience for part of their tournaments and stuff, but I was never a tournament player. I was just a reasonably to pretty good solo player. Did some divisions and platoons and stuff like that, but it was my knowledge really that carried me through that game more than anything. Like, I'm one of those gamers that really likes to learn mechanics and, like, data and stuff. Like, let's take Genshin as a recent example, because that's the game I've been putting most of my time into as of late, other than VR-based stuff that I've been getting into again. Because now I have a VR setup, I can get into some games like Euro Truck and stuff, but that's not really a gaming game type thing. But with Genshin, I am much more likely to care about efficiency with substats and set pieces for the character that I'm building, as well as prioritizing what my routes are for certain mats, like wood runs. Like, I have my wood runs that I'm like, okay, this is my run for wood. I then reset and come back for this wood, because you can reset, like, I think it's after 11 trees you hit, you can then go back to the tree you began with, and it will have respawned its wood count. I think that's how it works. I think it was 11. It was either 10 or 11. But like things like that is what I learned about the game, rather than what the main storyline of Genshin is. I genuinely cannot remember much of the main storyline of Genshin at this point. I've been doing a couple of story quests recently, because I fell behind on story quests, and I want to be prepared for... Well, I want to use 1.6 and all the events stuff to like wrap up everything I can mission-wise with the game, so I'm just doing mat collection and getting equipment and stuff like that, so that for 1.7, hopefully being the new continent, I'll be back into the main storyline and like on track and not falling behind again. Got a lot of hangout quest stuff to do as well in that regard, so that's why 1.6 is important to me. But yeah, I'm very much the stat guy when it comes to games, and many of you who have stuck with me through my previous projects will know that that absolutely is the type of person I am. And so it's no surprise that I care a lot about YouTube analytics and stuff like that as well. And when it comes to gaming, why I like games that like Factorio, like Satisfactory, these types of games that require like efficiency and management and stuff like that. So anyway, that's going to do it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed that one as per usual. Leave a like if you did, as well as your comments for the episode. I'm sure this was a fairly interesting episode to get if you were watching this as it was coming out or when you're first watching this series. It definitely seems odd to have just like most of the episode just be a monologue and not really anything else happen. But I still think, like, looking on it now, it feels like a good episode for building William as a character, as well as building character motivations for this entire guild, almost. So, I appreciate it, even if it wasn't the most action-packed or interesting episode, per se. So, don't forget to subscribe as well. We're doing one more episode after this, of course, since we do a double every Friday. And then we'll be doing a double next week, of course, as per usual. So don't forget to hit subscribe for that, as well as the rest of the Spring 2021 lineup you can find here on the channel. Thank you for watching. Till next time. See you guys later.